Hello everyone, we're here with the incredible Marc Prensky. He's the creator of the terms digital native and digital immigrant, and most recently the author of the book Education to Better Their World. Am I correct?
You are correct.
Okay, so today we're gonna do a small talk and interview to find out what are his perspectives towards education for kids of the future, including myself. In your previous speech in the morning that was incredible, you talked about that we need to rethink what being educated means.
I think that in the past, being educated meant knowing how to think, how to work intellectually. That's what we thought, having read the right books, having gone through the right courses, having gotten the right degrees, that meant you were educated. But what was left out of that education was any notion of accomplishment, was any notion of getting something done, taking action, having good relationships, and accomplishing. So what I think is happening is that the definition of being educated is not just knowing things or being able to think in certain ways, but it's actually the whole picture. It's getting things done. It's effective thinking, action, relationships, and accomplishment. What's
the main difference between achievement and accomplishment for the ones who have not heard you in the morning, and what does it entail for people?
Okay. Well, sometimes achievement and accomplishment are used interchangeably, but the way I like to look at them is that an achievement is something you do for yourself. Maybe you climb the highest mountain, maybe you get the best grade, maybe you become the head of your class. That's something that you have achieved, and that's good. There's a lot to be said for that. An accomplishment, on the other hand, is something that you have done for other people or for the world. So if you have climbed Mount Everest and you have cleaned up all the debris on top of Mount Everest, that's not just an achievement, that's an accomplishment.
And regarding the word accomplishment, you mentioned before the role of teachers to empower kids to do things and to get things done. But before we could understand it as, okay, I'm going to empower you to achieve things. But how do you think that switch must go in order to not just empower children to achieve things for them, but to achieve things for their communities and for their countries?
Well, the goal of education is changing from improving individuals to improving the world, to bettering your own world. And so what we want to empower kids to do is to make their own world better as they see it, whether it's their family world, their local world, their country world, their global world. And so the more they understand that with the tools that they have, they can take action, they can respond to the problems that they see in the world, the more empowered they will feel and the more they'll do that.
There's this topic that you also talked about in the morning that was, we need as teachers to take our children into the real world so they can figure out ways to solve it. But so many teachers are afraid and think their children are unprepared to confront the real world. What would be your suggestion for them, and what would be your call for all the teachers that can get to see this? Like, what's the message?
The important thing for adults now, whether they're teachers or parents, is to understand that their kids are not the same as they were when they were young. So they're not what I call little us's. And when we were, and I include myself in this, when we were kids, we could do certain things, but we didn't have a very big impact in the world. Now, if a student is in primary school, and I say do a survey, they don't just do their class, they don't just do their school. I say survey 1 million people. Go get SurveyMonkey and bring me the answer for 1 million people, and they can do that. And so the power is so much greater once they realize that. And I think that if the teachers understood more that in empowering kids in trust and respect and independence and collaboration and kindness, the TRIC acronym of my friend, the kids will be very happy, they will feel much better, they will respond much better, and they will do things that will always surprise us.
We were talking about in the future when machines are going to be able to do everything we do today. What's going to make us different is us being unique, and creativity is an important part of that. So maybe we need to rethink how we make that course happen, or what purpose that course has, or what kind of impact it can make. So what would be your suggestions for all the teachers that make this course that's very important, and that in your opinion I consider is one of the most important to become this unique, educated human beings of the future, to rethink it in order to make it sexy to kids?
Well, this is an example of what we do in academia and school a lot. We think about subjects, we think about stuff, but we don't think as much about the kids, about the students. So if you took the same course and you said, what problem do you care about in the world, you, and what are you good at, and what do you love to do, and now let's figure out how to make some solutions to those problems that you care about, that you love, that you're good at, and invent some new things. And you would probably be more motivated to do that because you'd come out with your own solutions. And then at the end we could say, oh, by the way, that was creativity, right? That's very nice. But when you start with the subject matter, it really takes things away from the person often. And I think that's one of the biggest problems in education, is that we don't focus on the individual, just for the reason you said. Because we want, in the future, if two people can do something equally well, a machine can do it, or learn to do it. So we want people to be unique, to do something better than anybody in the world can. And that's possible at every level. Even the lowest level groundskeeper or street sweeper can do it in a unique way and be special for that. And if they do that, then it's less likely that a machine will take their job. And so I think that the important thing is to make sure that we focus again on the people, and not just on something called a subject matter, whether it's creativity or entrepreneurship or whatever else it is. There's lots of skills we need, but the people are more important than the skills.
We were talking about like expanded brains in the morning. That works in a certain, let's say, social and economic context. Here in Peru, and to make it smaller, even Lima, the reality between this Lima you're sitting right now and other parts of Lima that are just 2 hours away, children don't even have access to a good hospital, and they don't have access to an iPad or to learn how I learned when I was young, because I was lucky enough to be inside this school and to share with these teachers.
I think we have a huge opportunity here. And the opportunity is to take the third of our population that we call students and use them, or not use them, but give them the power, empower them to make the country better.
So you're talking about an education based on our community problems. And sometimes that doesn't happen because we don't have the opportunity to get to know our reality, and we're like stuck in especially in Lima. It's like a very small population that actually, as I mentioned before, has the access to this kind of education. So what would be an idea that comes to your mind at this point that you can tell these teachers sitting right here, okay, go and do this, like take your children to the field, like to find out?
The most important thing is to start talking with the kids directly and start listening to the kids directly. I don't think there's a kid in the world, or in Peru, or in Lima, that if you said to them, do you see problems in your world? Oh, and tell me what they are. They would have a list, a very long list. And you say, now which ones of those do you think that you could help with your strengths and your interests, and which ones do you want to help with? I think that it's not hard to have those kids connect to themselves to solving the problems. They've just never been told that they have that power. And now you say, okay, well, you do have that power. What do you think we should do? What do we need? Oh, we need some, maybe we need some laptops to create an app. Oh, we have those, right? We're the kids who have those. So let's work together and make this happen. Or another situation is where in one country they were trading off kids who had the iPads were trading with old people for reading lessons. So I'll teach you to use an iPad, you teach me to read. There are a lot of things that the kids will think of, and both in terms of the problems and the solutions, that we adults won't think of. And if we liberate the kids and empower the kids to implement their solutions, they will do it.
Why do you think it was necessary for all the academia to change the academic tradition into an accomplishment tradition? What were like the factors that made that happen?
I start talking about two traditions of education. That the oldest tradition is an accomplishment tradition. It was father to son, it was master to apprentice, it was getting things done in the world. And that went on for thousands of years. And then thinkers came along, and people like Socrates and Plato, and they said, let's form academies and let's just spend our time thinking about some of these issues. And that's very important, and that has grown. And that tradition of thinking only captured our K-12 schools, our primary and secondary schools. So what happened was that we only have the thinking tradition, and we lost in our schools the accomplishment tradition. That tradition still exists in our businesses and workplaces because you have to get things done there. So what we need to do is not switch from one to the other, but to figure out a new way of combining the two so that people don't think that thinking by itself is enough. Even if it's critical thinking or problem solving, you still need good action skills and effective relationship skills and effective accomplishment skills.
And as teachers, how do you build those?
We all have to learn to do that, but the easiest way to do that is by accomplishing, by doing projects where you try to get things done, where you're not just interested in the subject matter, but how to apply that subject matter, where you're not just interested in what the kids are passionate about, but how they can apply that passion. And the goal underneath is making a better world.
You talked about the pace of change is so fast. And we have teachers, and most of them are digital immigrants, and which are not so willing to change that fast. So what would be your suggestion to these teachers to be able to empower and take out the superheroes inside their students to become real change makers and to really change the world, even though if it's their small community or the whole world? So what would it be?
I think anybody who wants to move into the future needs to partner up with at least one, but hopefully more than one, person who's young, who's along that trajectory, and see yourselves as partners working together so that when the young person has a question about what does something mean, they can talk to the old person. Like my son will say, what does this word mean, or what does this phrase mean? When I have a question, and my son is my partner, my 12-year-old, when I have a question, I say, Sky, how do you do this? And he'll help me understand how to do this, and then he'll say to me, no, that's so old. You don't want to do that. You're still using that app? No, you use WhatsApp. Well, how do I do this? And having that young person as your mentor or partner, I wrote a book about partnering, really helps you move forward because they're moving at a much faster pace in all these kinds of things. And as you are working together to get things done, so if I'm making a video, I will be the person in charge of the content, but my son will do the filming and the editing. And so together we're making a good intergenerational team, and I think that's what we need today is intergenerational teamwork.
So intergenerational teamwork to get real change makers, that's the education of the future for Marc Prensky.
I think so, and making sure that when we say real change makers, we're looking for measurable positive impact.
Thank you everyone, that was Marc Prensky.